Okay, here we are, another walk just down the road from my house. I love this walk. This goes around a polo pitch, I'll show you that in a minute. And it's a bit dark actually. It keeps threatening to rain. I don't know, I've got sunglasses on. I always seem to wear sunglasses when it's about to rain. I don't know about that anyway. So, continuing the music theme, and I'm probably going to move on to some other subjects that might be more interesting, but anyway, I just wanted to get one out of the way, or two. There's the polo pitch, can you see that? So if I just do all of that, you can see beautiful flat field there. I'm not sure what event they're setting up for, but it's only one polo field here. There's lots around where we live. There's Guards Polo Club, which is probably the largest one, and then there's the other one in the Great Park. I don't know which one that is actually. That's more of the Royals one. This is a lovely walk. So it goes all the way around. You can see I'm now walking kind of around the outside of this thing on a public footpath, which is nice, although it's got a lot of brambles. Anyway, yes, coming back to music. So my biggest topic of music is the Beatles, and I think I've said before, they're not really a band to me, they're kind of a part of me, which is a very odd thing to say, but I have so many vivid memories. And I listen to the Beatles most days and you'd think, Jesus Christ, that's boring, isn't it? But actually it isn't. I'm really negotiating some brambles here. Anyway, I wish more people would use this footpath, then it wouldn't have so many. Yes, so I listen to them most days. I play bass and I'm trying to learn most of the bass lines. It's like going for a jungle. And it's even that I could talk about another day, just how the bass progression or Paul McCartney's bass playing changed over the years. But I think the key thing for me is, why are they so important? I think I did mention before that we had an old reel-to-reel copy of A Hard Day's Night. I wish I still had that. I might buy one on eBay just to, I don't know what I'd do with it, but just the memories come flooding back. But anyway, I listen to that constantly, and I mean constantly, and it's by far and away not their best album. It's probably fifth or sixth even. I love it. I love everything about it. And it transports me back to being 4 or 5 years old. Is that why I love it? There's a nice view again. It really is beautiful here. And I just played and played and played and played that album. So what is it that made me do that? The first album I bought was an album called Hey Jude, which isn't a UK release, it's actually an American album. And I bought it in Great Missenden in a little shop. It's weird how these things happen, isn't it? You know, there was no eBay or anything like that back then, no internet to be honest. And I bought that album. First album I bought was a Beatles album, but it wasn't a UK album. It's a bit of an odd album actually. It's got a few hits on, it's got a lot of hits on. The American albums are a bit weird. I'd recommend looking them up. Magical Mystery Tour, for example, was an EP in the UK and it wasn't very good. The American album of Magical Mystery Tour is a great album. And it's actually replaced the EP. So if you go on to Spotify or whatever and you look up Magical Mystery Tour, you will end up listening to the American album. Anyway, lots of activity here. I think there's a match going on this weekend. Is that what's called, a match? Polo match? I don't know. Anyway, I'm babbling. Early years of the Beatles with me. There's some lovely horses over there, probably in the distance. This camera is very wide angle, so they're probably just our little specks. When I was younger, I loved all their early stuff. And we have to remember that also that the Beatles had been playing together for about 6 or 7 years before they became famous. So they were musically, real pros, to the point where Paul McCartney was a pianist, bass player, guitarist and a drummer. That's how good they were musically. He isn't my favourite Beatle, by the way, but musically he's probably the most gifted. We'll come on to the favourite Beatle. There's some beautiful countryside out here. It really is lovely. It's a shame about the sky. Look at that, grey. So when I was younger, I liked the early stuff. Love Me Do, Please Please Me, A Hard Day's Night. I didn't like the later stuff at all. Oh, this is getting very jungly up here. Let's see if we can get through without being torn to shreds. Yeah, I didn't like their later stuff until I got older. And I was probably in my late 20s by the time I really liked, say, the White Album or Sgt. Pepper. Oh my God, I'm not going to come back this way. Or Sgt. Pepper. I was that, it was that progression. And actually the White Album I didn't like at all. Still not convinced by it today. It's got greatness in areas, but some weird stuff as well. And I'd say it's only probably in the last 10 years, oh my God, where I've decided that Abbey Road is probably the best Beatles album. It cycles between Abbey Road and Revolver for me, and even Rubber Soul. I love those 3 albums. Weird that Sgt. Pepper I like, but I don't hold it in the same kind of regard that critically it has, which is either number 1 or number 2 of the best albums ever made. It has some amazing stuff on it. I mean, A Day in the Life, just what a track. Probably one of the best tracks of music ever made. Anyway, so early on it was the early stuff that I loved. Later on it's the later stuff I love. And we were talking about progressions with bands and artists, and the Beatles set the blueprint really, didn't they, for progression. You're going from pop songs, talking about loving other women and love and, 2.5 minute long singles, to Strawberry Fields Forever within 3 or 4 years. Nobody does that today at all. Today it's formulas, auto-tune, sampling, which at times is absolutely fine, but I like original stuff. So from a progression perspective, they set the blueprint. There's no doubt about that. Musically incredibly talented. I mean, look at the stuff that George Harrison wasn't able to put on a Beatles album. If you listen to his first solo album, All Things Must Pass, incredible. Some of the songs that he couldn't, Lennon and McCartney gave him his allocation, and that was it. But some of his songs are amazing. Even during the Beatles era, I like his songs, to be honest. So for over 50 years now, they've been my number 1 group. Listen to them daily, at least one song. It's odd, I listen to an album, I might listen to Soundgarden or, I don't know, Supertramp. Breakfast in America, what an amazing album that is. We'll talk about that another time. But I always have to sneak in a Beatles song. I'm trying to learn one on the bass at the moment, one of the early ones, and it is driving me bananas because I just don't have the finger speed or dexterity to play the track. I can play a lot of Beatles songs, but this one, oh my God, it is driving me bananas. And it's that curiosity. How did he do it? How did he do it, and how did they play it live 20% faster than they do on the record? you know, note perfect. It just amazing. So I don't know where to. I'm all over the place with the Beatles because it the influence is incredible. Fly on my screen, fly on my windscreen. There you go. There's a famous song. And I'll never stop loving them. I'll never stop listening to them. I actually think they broke up at the right time. I like early Rolling Stones. I don't like where they are as a band. You know, wrinkly old guys coming out. I know they're very fit and everything else. They have other musicians behind the stage that you don't see when they play concerts. Because Keith Richards' hands are like knurled up, as you might expect. He's, you know, pushing 80, and his hands are kind of in a grip position. So I don't blame them. I just don't like it. You know, when you put out all the material that is innovative and interesting, then stop. The Beatles were clearly pissing each other off. You can see that in some of the music, and also, you know, just listening to the later albums, you can see they were starting to lose their way a bit. Paul McCartney was a bit of a control freak. John Lennon had lost interest, so they stopped when they should. And we've got an amazing gift of music. The other thing that's amazing to me still is that most of their albums don't have their singles on. So they had this contract where they had to release at least, was it one album a year or 2 albums a year to begin with? I can't remember. But they also had to release a number of singles a year. And those singles weren't to appear on the albums. Can you imagine that now, where Ed Sheeran releases an album and then during the year he releases 3 singles that aren't on any of his albums? It's, you know, and the singles are, think about Paperback Writer as a single. It's not on an album, it's on the American albums, but it's not on an album here. Why is that? And it was just the way things were. So innovation, progression, musicality, stunning musicianship, can keep coming back to them, never gets boring. Why is that? I don't know. It's just part of me. So that's the Beatles, and this has been 12 minutes of me rambling about them. I don't think I've said much about them really. Which album do I hate? I don't have a album I hate. I'm not big on Meet the Beatles, or is it With the Beatles? It's one of the Americans called it With or Meet. I think it was With the Beatles, ours. I don't like that album much. It's a lot of covers. Sounds like it was rushed out. Beatles for Sale, not a big fan of either. Although again, there's 2 or 3 really good tracks on there. The White Album, I think if it was half the double album with all the songs I like on it, would probably be one of the top albums they made. But to listen to it all the way through, it's a bit of a chore, some of the tracks. But yeah, I'll probably talk about them again one day in a more structured way, maybe go through the albums one by one. But I just wanted to sort of get out my feelings on the Beatles because they're my number 1 band, always will be. Other bands come along and, you know, for good or bad, those bands end up being 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 5th, 6th on my list. They can never topple them. Anyway, that's it for this one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to finish up my walk. It's about 45 minutes this walk. It's not too bad. In the countryside, you can probably hear the countryside in the background. And then I think I'll go on to some more kind of personal subjects now, and maybe some deeper subject matter. But for now, that's some of the music I love. Loads of other bands I want to talk about. I'll kind of intersperse that with some of the more interesting things, just to not bore myself. These videos are made mainly for me, so that I can look back on some of my sort of musings and thoughts and things. and it's quite cathartic to be out on a walk and talking to myself. What does that say? Anyway, have a great day. Hopefully it won't rain. God, this weather really looks grim. Hopefully it won't rain, and we're into the weekend then. So bye bye for now.